I will talk about CodeceptJS and how it fits into the modern testing ecosystem. So CodeceptJS is a very cool testing framework, and I say this because I developed it, but it wouldn't be so cool if it wasn't powered by Playwright.
Michael,
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. Your voice is a little bit low. Can you volume up your...
Yeah, that's sorry. Something with Zoom settings. I just checked, and it was. Sorry, I will stop sharing and try the configuration. It's really something Zoom specific.
Probably.
Okay, how about now?
It's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start again. So this talk will be about CodeceptJS, Playwright, and how we can make our tests effective with using both of these tools. So my name is Michael. I developed one of those, CodeceptJS, but it wouldn't be as much as powerful without the Playwright and other underlying engines that actually do all the dirty job of running browser tests for us in real browsers. So a few words about me. I am a web developer currently in Kyiv, in Ukraine. So you hear a lot about Ukraine nowadays, so I won't talk about this a long time. So what I usually do, I work on open source testing frameworks, not just testing frameworks, but for this scope. Let's say that you may know me from CodeceptJS or Codeception, which is also a testing framework, but built for PHP. And now I'm working on taking this job into something on a different scale to build a next generation test management system, Testomatio, which is focused on automated tests. So let's take a look into the end-to-end testing in general. So usually by...
Michael, just one more reminder. If you share your screen, we cannot see it.
Oh, sorry, I stopped.
Oh, it's not important.
Yeah, I stopped to change. Yeah.
Now we can see. Thank you again.
Yeah, so let's talk about browser testing. And when we talk about browser testing, it's really hard and complicated question, and probably it will be forever. Even harder thing is mobile testing or IoT testing, but browser from year of evolution, browser has become an operating system of its own. It's a very big system, and every time we spin it up just for testing to perform some clicks on the web page, we do a lot of job to launch it. So when we do browser testing, even it seems for us pretty simple task, like we just emulating user behavior, moving mouse, clicking the buttons, we still need to work with this very big black box of stuff that is happening in a browser. So the question we'll need to answer is how we set up browser. Will Selenium help us, because the usual approach is using Selenium for everything which is related to browser. Browsers are slow because it renders web pages, and web pages became web application nowadays. Can we speed them up somehow? And answering this question, it will be the first entering barrier for us to start testing. So when we test web applications, we also hit next issues. So yeah, let's imagine we launched the browser, we started testing, and we figure out the interface behaves unpredictably. So as a user, we can wait here. We can imagine that probably this is not the right button to click. Maybe we should click the other button to figure out what is the point. And yeah, interface may be glitchy, flaky, it's not rendering in time, and we hit those issues pretty often when we start automating, do automated testing for such applications. And what is also quite important, there is no reliable application state. So if we think of a state machine, and that when we do some action on page and it will turn the system into the other state, and we see that the state has is now ready. In web application, it doesn't notify us on any change that user may produce. So when we click at some point on the screen, we can only intuitively guess has the system state changed or not, because browser won't report us. Well, usually web application do not report it. So in the previous times, if you click at some point, the URL will change. So the form will be sent, or you go to the next page, you at least see that URL is changed, and it notifies you that your application has changed your state. But in modern applications, it's not the case anymore. You can, when you click, the page can react you with notification message, or with a modal dialog, or with some very small change that you won't be notified. You will be, it's hard to guess what is actually happened. And testing this without you relying on application states is really hard, because you rely only on interface, but you don't know of application state. For instance, if we need to have like 100 users to test our application, we need to enable this state somehow. We won't register 100 users via browser to achieve this state. And to transfer from this state to other state where we have 50 users, we will need also to do something beyond the scope of the web application we are testing. And without being able to operate of application states, we will need to create some hooks to do this. And also the question how we locate elements on the page. And you know that we can create the test IDs, data IDs, or add special classes to elements, or locate them in other way. But this is another problem that we will need to solve during the test automation. So Playwright, which is a cool modern tool to work to enable automated testing, solves partly these issues, probably mostly related to browser. It helps us with locators and testing different applications. So it solves most of issues, but not all of them. And at least you don't need Selenium when you use Playwright. So Playwright is a modern Selenium alternative. When I say Selenium alternative, I mean that it's cross-browser testing framework, which have standard API, which have an active team of volunteers maintainers who develop this product, and it's open source, so it's absolute competitive with the Playwright. So unlike Cypress, which is not cross-browser, which doesn't have API and which is tool of its own, Playwright is more closer to the idea that Selenium came first, to provide one interface to launch all browsers and make the ecosystem around it. So Playwright is started by Microsoft, but previously the same team was working in Puppeteer in Google. So here's the interesting point. So even if Microsoft abandons this project, well, actually they say they won't, and they have enough money to not do it. We have still alternative as a Puppeteer from Google, and they are competitors at this point. So we can easily switch from one tool to other, because they built by the same team using the same API. And it's really good that we have so much competition nowadays, and not only Selenium, which is quite old and it's developing very slowly. And yeah, Playwright works with Chromium, WebKit, which is Safari. So if you need to test something in Safari and you don't have Mac, WebKit engine will run on every operating system you have, or Firefox. So yeah, the first time I saw Safari running on my Linux when I executed this with Playwright. And unlike Selenium, you won't have problems with launching a headless mode. And currently there are APIs for Node.js, Python, and probably more, maybe already in Java. I didn't check it. So if you didn't hear of Playwright, you should definitely try it. And it have lots of features, and I'm not sure I will be listing all of them. So they have enormous list of features, and you should just go to their website to check what they have now. I will mention a few of them. So first of all, think of Playwright is of API access to DevTools. So whatever DevTools can provide to you, you can get from the Playwright engine and use it in your test to mock network requests, to get information from console logs, and get information from local store, everything. So everything DevTools can provide to you, you can get it. Get performance metrics, for instance. So what is also cool is that it have built-in video recordings. So you don't need to think how to record your video. It just works. So it can emulate devices, so you can launch your test as you are using mobile browser on iPhone or Samsung and so on. And more features, so they try to build their own ecosystem around it, and not just a browser testing engine as a browser testing framework. So they include reporting, test runner, everything Playwright contains. So usually a Playwright test look like this. So now if previously they suggested to use Jest as a test runner, they created their own implementation of Jest, but the one which better suits to their needs. And you declare the test similarly to Jest, but with some difference. And you write the test in this manner using page API and then performing a checks. And probably this API of expect is quite similar to what Protractor has. So all the testing automation engineers who worked with Protractor, who worked with Selenium, will be really familiar with this API. And what we should always keep in mind that we need to put await before each command, because each command in Node.js will be asynchronous, and we need explicitly to say that before running this one command, please wait for the previous command to end. So please wait to end, please wait to end, please wait to end, and so on. So this is why we always need this prefix await writing tests in Node.js. So Playwright provides an API with browser, context, page, element, frame, and so on. So yeah, you have control of all of them, unlike the Cypress IO, which doesn't provide you control for anything except page. So page or element, because Cypress fails on working with iframes, while Playwright provides everything for you of the scope. So what I would say issues of Playwright, it's perfect, yes, but no. So I would mention the problems I see right now is that it has very complicated Node.js API. So if you are senior developer, you would be comfortable working with this. But if you are not, you will need to train yourself and your JavaScript skills to use their APIs without the problems. So there is no synchronous mode, so you always need to put that awaits I mentioned previously to every line of your test. It's really boring. And yeah, because we need to synchronize tests on our own, and that adds lots of mechanical work to us. And again, we need to know JavaScript a lot to understand the API of usage, have previous testing behavior experience to know the browser behavior and how to use it. So Playwright is a tool, but it's a tool for experts. And probably it's not very good for juniors or just people who transferring from manual QA to automation. So here is a quote I found in Twitter that Playwright is really cool, but because it doesn't have the synchronous mode and you always need to use await, it's really hard to write and maintain this code. So this is why I proposed of using CodeceptJS on top of Playwright. So Playwright was created before the Playwright, CodeceptJS was created before Playwright was created. It's a framework on top of other browser engines like WebDriver or Protractor. The CodeceptJS was previously working with them, but now it works with Playwright too. And the thing is that the users who were using CodeceptJS and using it with Protractor were able to migrate their tests to Playwright without any change of their code, because they just switched one engine to other and their test just worked. So there was no problem with Protractor deprecation if they were using CodeceptJS. So CodeceptJS is a BDD style testing framework with a fully focused on browser testing, and it provides the same API for all of these browser engines. So yeah, you don't need to think of how we will, if there will be a new cool engine, will we be able to switch to it? What is better, Puppeteer or WebDriver? So you can just use CodeceptJS and switch between them when you need to. It doesn't happen so often, but maybe if requirements will change, you will need to use something different than Playwright. You are able to do it. So comparing the code from what we saw in Playwright natively and CodeceptJS, you see that CodeceptJS code is much more readable. You can get non-tech personnel into reading this code. You can train manual QAs to write this code in very fast way, because the API is strict, it's very comprehensive, and you can start writing tests. Probably the hardest part is to teach manual QAs to work with locators, but that's the regular deal and nothing more to learn, because all the commands are quite comprehensive to write complex end-to-end scenarios. So CodeceptJS can be installed with one command, and we see with this GIF how it will be installing. So yeah, it will be, it just installs everything for you, creates a project, downloads the Playwright, and shows you how to start new command. So it's like create React app, but create CodeceptJS. Then we initialize a new project. So on all the parts, you are guided by the wizard to what configuration you want to use. It will help to create your first configuration, to create your first test, and then you are ready for testing. So our first test should look like this, because usually we don't know what we are testing, what our first scenarios to be. So to not to blindly write our test, we will just open a page we are testing and then use the pause command to, so browser would stuck at this point, and we will see what to do next. So we are executing our test. The browser is opening, and this Airbnb website is shown. And now we can use DevTools to figure out how to fill in the fields we are looking for. So we want to book an apartment using Airbnb. So we are filling the form. We found out the locator for this form. And inside the test runner using interactive console, we are trying this command. I typed this command in and it worked. So, okay, good guess. I can bring it into the test. So next would be to use the same pattern to deal with calendars. Like I figure out how to locate the date in calendar. I type this into the console while running my test. And yeah, it clicked and the test go. And then I press the enter key to close the calendar. So you see, I'm controlling browser from the console right now, typing in next commands. And when I will finish selecting next the dates, I can submit the form using the by typing them in, and this will create in the end produce me a working test. So I click search. So let's say this was the whole scenario of booking, and when I think that I did the check completely, for instance, I can check that some of the apartment is on the page. I can say that, well, this is my test for now, and let's have it saved. For instance, I can check that some apartments are on the page, some apartments not on the page, and the console reports me on this. So when I finish my testing, I press enter key, the test runner finishes, and the scenario of my used commands is saved into file, and I can just copy them, and voila, I have a fully working test. So I started with this one line. This one line I figured out while the browser was running. I typed this command in, they are all tested. So when I will execute this test, it will be working. So it's fully working test with one browser executions, and it's the most effective way of writing tests I know. So we can use UI runner if you are not very comfortable with console, and it shows you all the tests you have and shows step-by-step execution. So for instance, running this test we had will provide you the test report like this one on this screenshot. But back to CodeceptJS and also what can it do for you. So for instance, if you have lots of tests, CodeceptJS easily scales in parallel using workers. So from what I know, the Cypress scales really bad. So you can't run more than one Cypress instance on one machine. So they propose using different machines to execute Cypress. And this is quite messy because in CodeceptJS, you can execute as many browser instances as you need on one machine, but keep in mind that a browser will take 1 GB of RAM and 1 CPU core. So if you need, for instance, 16 browsers running in parallel, well, prepare 16 CPU cores to do this. And we can also unleash the Playwright API because it's much more rich than CodeceptJS provides to you. For instance, if you need some specific actions from Playwright, like turning dark mode on, you can execute the Playwright API to do this and use its methods to manipulate the page. So CodeceptJS provides its syntax on top of Playwright API, but if you need to use this API natively, please do it. CodeceptJS doesn't limit you to do it. But CodeceptJS adds something more on top of it. For instance, it tries to solve the problem of data management. So do you remember the problem I stated in the very beginning about what if we need to bring application to the state where we have 100 of users and then we have 50 of users? So how can we do it? We wouldn't do it from the browser, clicking here and there. Yeah. And probably as in all modern application, we already have API for this. And if we will use this API and we have endpoint for creating user, we can just use this command. Like I have multiple user, 100. And if your API provides this method correctly, you can create 100 users for your test and automatically remove them in the end of a test. So it's really, really effective. So you just define the data you need in the beginning of test. This data will be automatically created through API and it will be cleaned up after. So it's really, really powerful. And the next problem to solve, so this problem solves the application state. And the next problem to solve is how to deal with locators, especially from users who isn't used with XPath. And to be honest, not so many people in modern world know how all these XPath locators. So I don't usually use them because they are really complicated. So I created the generator which can produce XPath locators for you if you use this locator builder. So for instance, inside the table, we need to find all links with text edit, and we will name this edit button in a log. So you will see the edit, you will locate the edit button in a table, and the locator will be generated for you. And also CodeceptJS is now not only about browser testing, it's about API testing as well. So as you have seen that we already provide methods for interacting with API, why not to provide assertions to just create some user, check that API responds correctly, and also to check that we have some responses, that we have some data in it, and that the response matches the JSON schema. So all these methods CodeceptJS provides, and if you think also of launching fast and efficient Node.js API tests, CodeceptJS is also your choice because I would say it's the simplest tool to use and the minimal number of commands you need to write to have an efficient API test. So let's see how CodeceptJS can provide reports to us. So because I work on Testomatio, one of my goals is to build a very nice reporting tool which integrates with CodeceptJS, and Testomatio is a SaaS-based reporter. I would say that SaaS-based reporter is the best choice for reporting, no matter you use Testomatio or any other reporter, because you don't need to deal with storing the reports, to merging them, to storing history. So there must be some external server which the testing framework will send reports to. If you don't use the external server, you need to aggregate the data, you need to store it as artifacts, you need to bind it to some Jira issues. And Testomatio already does this. So even you can generate a Lua report or HTML or XML report, it's really hard to deal with them on long runs. So that's why I would recommend using a report portal, which is open source, which is enterprise grade product for automated tests, or Testomatio, which is not enterprise grade. It is, but not as big as report portal. But Testomatio is the most simple reporter to start using with. So you can just execute CodeceptJS tests, see a report, see the log of execution as on screen, see the error was, and the running code. So You can always track what tests were passing, what tests are not. You can show these reports to your managers, and you don't have burden of maintaining this on CI. So let's get to the conclusion points. So CodeceptJS is a testing framework focused on user experience and on end-to-end testing and API testing as well. So CodeceptJS doesn't execute tests on its own. So unlike Playwright, WebDriver, unlike Cypress, it doesn't execute tests on its own. It delegates this to all these cool tools around it. And because of this, it is not responsible to control and close the browser, and so all these engines does this for us. And CodeceptJS is free and open source. It's not a modern tool. I am working on it since 2015. And it's used in small and big companies, and people who use it are pretty happy with its UX, with its features. And yeah, currently I would recommend CodeceptJS to use with Playwright, because I think the Playwright is a future and the best engine for browser testing. So, but still, I would say that writing native tests in Playwright is quite complicated. You have lots of boilerplate code around it, and it can be really messy. So Playwright to me is Angular JS in the world of front-end testing frameworks. So you need to do lots of things to do the common stuff, and CodeceptJS is a framework that minimizes the efforts you need to spend to write your tests with Playwright. So thanks for listening. I have this code, I have more videos, I have my Twitter, and the test management system Testomatio, which you may try. It works not only with CodeceptJS, but any JavaScript testing framework like Jest, Cypress, and so on. And you can try it today. It's free to, so for small teams. So thanks for listening.